The night my own security camera turned its head to follow me across the kitchen. The little speaker on it crackled, and a man's voice said my name. Not a question, not a threat, just Grant, calm, like he was reading it off a list. Let me back up, because the part that still gets me is not the voice. By the way, I'm Grant, 34. I run the parts counter at a shop off Admiral here in Tulsa, grew up on Oklahoma State football, still won't say one nice word about OU. And I bought those cameras myself, 4 of them, indoor. I put them up after a guy 2 doors down got kicked in during the day, and I told myself I'd sleep better being able to check my phone at work and see the dog on the couch. That's the part that kills me. I paid for the eyes. I aimed them. I am the reason there was a lens pointed at every room I live in. Here's the first thing that was actually wrong, and it was small enough that I almost let it go. The app keeps a little history. Live view started, camera viewed, and there were entries in there from the middle of the day when I know I wasn't looking because I was elbow deep in a break job with my phone in my locker. 2 in the afternoon. 4. Once at 3 in the morning, and I sure wasn't up watching my own hallway at 3 in the morning. Somebody was. That was the answer, right there, before I wanted to know it. My cameras had an audience and it wasn't me. I changed the password, told myself that closed it. For about a week it was quiet and I actually slept. Then the bedroom camera moved. I keep it high in the corner so it covers the door. I know exactly where it points because I set it. And one night I'm lying there and the little motor does its thing, this soft ZZT, and the lens rolls maybe 15 degrees. Down, off the door, onto the bed, onto me. I couldn't tell you how many nights it had been doing that before I happened to be awake to catch it. I just laid there dead still and watched a camera I bought decide it wanted a better look at me sleeping. The dog started too. Every night a little before 1, he'd get up off the couch and stand in the middle of the living room and bark at nothing. Not the window, the corner, up at the camera. I mean, I used to think a dog barking at nothing was just the dog being dumb. I don't think that anymore. I tried to be smart about it. One night I reached up and unplugged the living room camera just to take one eye away from him and went to bed. Next morning the kitchen camera, a different one, said, "Put it back." 2 words. So I put it back. I'm not proud of that, but you tell me what you do, you know, when the house itself tells you to. The voice came back for real on a Sunday. I just walked in from a quick trip run, set the bag down, and the kitchen camera said, plain as talking to a neighbor, "You left the stove on again." And I had. I'd left a burner going that morning, which meant he wasn't guessing. He'd watched me do it hours before, and he'd been watching close enough to save it up and hand it back to me. I started going camera to camera, and that's when I found the thing I can't get out of my head. The camera over the back door, the one facing the yard, had a little wad of gum pressed flat over the status light so it wouldn't glow. You cannot reach that camera from the doorway. You have to come inside, stand under it, and reach up. Somebody had been inside my house, standing in my kitchen, close enough to touch me if I'd been home. And they took the time to blind one small red light, so I'd never noticed that one camera was recording for them and not for me. He didn't break my system. He walked into it and adjusted it, the way you'd nudge a lamp in your own living room. I finally called the company and had them pull the whole account. There was a second device on it. A phone, not mine, added months back before I had ever changed a single password, logged in from a town about an hour south that I have never lived in. And when they read me the view history tied to that phone, it was every night. Live view 1, 2 in the morning, sometimes an hour at a stretch. He wasn't checking to see if I was home. He knew I was home. That was the whole point. He'd found my login somewhere, gotten in before I hung the first camera, and then he just watched. Me asleep, me in the shower, me leaving the stove on, for as long as I had owned the things. There is not one camera in my house now. I took them all down that night and I have never put one back. I tape over the little dot on my laptop. I turn my phone face down when I sleep. I know how that sounds. And I'll give you the honest part, the part I don't say out loud. The first night with every lens gone, no red light anywhere in the house, was the best I had slept in a year. And I still woke up at 1 in the morning. staring at the empty corner of the ceiling where the bedroom camera used to be, looking for a light that wasn't there anymore. Some part of me had gotten so used to being watched that it didn't know how to stop.
I'd had the doorbell camera almost a year before it started insisting that a man I had never seen in my life was a familiar face. That's the exact phrase the app uses, familiar faces. It learns the people who come around a lot, your mail carrier, your kid, whoever, and it stops flagging them as strangers. I'll call myself Colleen. I work nights. I'm a floor nurse in Grand Rapids, the kind of tired where you end up buying groceries at the major at 6 in the morning because you're already up and it's already open. And honestly, I only bought the thing so I could see packages land while I was at the hospital. I never once thought about who else it might decide to recognize. The notification came in one morning while I was still in scrubs. Familiar face seen. And the little photo attached to it was a man. 50s maybe, ball cap. Nobody I knew, not from anywhere. So I did what you do, I opened his history figuring it was a glitch. It was not a glitch. There were 41 clips of him. 41 going back weeks. And when I actually read the times, my stomach dropped. Almost every one of them landed in the same 20 minutes, right around dawn. Which, if you work nights, you already understand. Right around dawn is exactly when I drag myself up the front walk half dead and go straight to bed with the blinds shut. He wasn't wandering past. He came when I came. He knew my shift better than my own mother does. Once I saw the pattern, I couldn't unsee it. In about half the clips, he isn't even facing the house. He's at the very edge of the frame, turned away, standing right on the line where the camera stops seeing. You don't stand there by accident. You stand there because you have studied where the lens reaches, and you are keeping one foot outside it on purpose. Then the side camera. I've got a second one on the driveway aimed at the gate. One afternoon, I go out and it's pointing at the neighbor's fence instead. I did not move it. I climbed up and turned it back, and I stood on that step a long time trying to think of a wind strong enough to swing a camera on a bracket, and there isn't one. Somebody had reached up and given it a different job. Here's the one that put me down on the kitchen floor. 4:47 in the morning, another familiar face alert, and I was awake. I'd caught a rare night off, and I was standing at my own window with a coffee, looking right at the empty walk. Nobody out there. But the app had just handed me a fresh clip of him at my door, stamped that same minute. I kept going back and forth between the glass and my phone like an idiot. Empty walk. Full screen. It took me way too long to get it. The clip was real, it just wasn't now. It was some other dawn, fed back to me at 4:47 like a reminder. He was inside the app. He had pushed it to me. He wanted me looking. And in that clip, the one he sent, he does the thing I am going to see for the rest of my life. He's down low by the meter box, and he lifts his head, and he looks straight up into the lens, right at me, and he raises one hand and points at the camera. At my camera, checking that it's still on. And then he smiles because he knows I am going to watch this. He was never hiding from the camera. He was using it to talk to me. A neighbor across the street has a camera of her own, pointed our general way, and when I finally worked up the nerve to ask, she pulled her footage. There he was in hers too. Standing in my side yard in the dark, not moving, just facing my bedroom window for long stretches at a time. On nights I'd been fast asleep thinking the alarm had me covered. I figured out who he was, sort of, and that's almost the worst part. Months back, before any of this started, a man came to the door with a clipboard. Said he was doing a utility survey for the county, real polite, asked me how many people lived here and what hours the house sat empty. I didn't tell him a thing and I shut the door, but I kept the flyer he left because it looked official, stuck it in a drawer for weeks. I dug it out. The company printed on it does not exist. I called the county. They do not send anybody around like that. It was him. And I finally understood what my own app had been trying to tell me for weeks. He never tricked the camera. He fed it. He walked past enough times, on purpose, right at the edge of that frame, until the thing I bought to catch strangers had looked at his face often enough to decide he belonged here. The system built to know my friends had gone and promoted him to one. I went back through everything after that, months of it, and now I cannot watch my own footage without finding him. All the clips I'd swiped away as nothing, a raccoon, a shadow off the gate, headlights turning around in the drive. Half of them have him in there somewhere at a corner in the dark, just past where the porch light gave up. The app had been right the entire time. He was familiar. I was the only one who didn't know. Didn't know I'd been living with him for the better part of a year. Didn't know that the little camera on my door had learned his face a long time before I ever knew there was a face to learn.
I bought 4 cameras for my apartment. The problem is that one night I found a 5th one, and I had not bought the 5th. I'm not going to give you my name, and by the end you'll understand why. I'm in my mid-30s, new enough to Spokane that I still called it the Lilac City like a brochure and still hadn't done a single hike. I was subletting a ground floor place from a guy who traveled for work and was almost never around, and the lease sat in his name, which matters more than it sounds, because it meant I could not change the locks. Hold on to that. I was living somewhere I could not lock against the one person who already had a key. The thing that gnawed at me for weeks before I found anything was that my own cameras were useless. Little stuff kept being off. Mail gone before I got to it. My door unlocked when I came home from a late shift, dead certain I'd locked it. But the footage, nothing. Not one person in frame, ever. And honestly, I remember standing there thinking what a normal person thinks, that my cameras were junk, and then thinking the thing that turned out to be true, which is that nobody misses 4 cameras that cleanly by luck. To never once cross a single lens, you have to know where every lens is looking. Somebody knew my apartment better than I did. And it got more personal than the mail. One morning the couch cushion I'd left square was dented in, still faintly warm, and it was July, so it wasn't the vent. Another night a mug I know I'd washed and put away was back in the sink with coffee dried in the bottom of it. Little claims on the place. Like somebody was trying my life on while I was at work and had gotten comfortable enough to stop cleaning up after himself. I found the 5th camera by accident. I was lying in bed, lights off, phone face down, full dark, and there was a pinpoint of light up on the ceiling that had no business being there. In the smoke detector, a tiny blue dot dead steady. Smoke detectors have a light, sure, but not there and not blue and not aimed down at the bed. I dragged a chair over. It was a camera. A little lens sitting behind the vents, pointed right at the spot where I sleep. I did not sleep in that room again. I also, and I don't know to this day if this was smart or stupid, did not tear it out right away because I wanted to know where it went. It was not on my Wi-Fi. I checked everything twice. So it was sending its picture somewhere else on its own little signal, and when I walked the apartment with my phone trying to find where that signal ran strongest, it did not climb toward the window, toward the street, toward the sky. It climbed toward the wall. The shared wall. Toward the hallway and the utility closet the unit split. Wherever the picture of me sleeping was going, it was not going far. That closet in the hall had a padlock on it I had never once thought about. There were a couple of nights before I opened it where I lay awake in the spare room and swore I could hear somebody settle into a chair on the other side of that wall. Small sounds, weight shifting. I told myself it was the building. The night I finally got the padlock open, I'll just tell you what was in there and you can decide how you'd have felt. A little monitor, on, glowing in the dark, and on the screen was my bedroom, live. My unmade bed, my window, the corner of my own dresser, right then in real time. There was a folding chair set up in front of it, square to the screen. And on the floor beside the chair there was a water bottle, half full, and the outside of it was still sweating. Cold. Somebody had been sitting in that closet watching my empty bed minutes before I put my hand on that lock. He had just stepped out, which meant he was coming back. He came back while I was still standing there. I heard the outside door, then him in the hall, and there was no second way out of that closet, so it happened in the hall. I'm not going to walk you through every second of it. He was bigger than me and he did not want to be seen, and I got a hand on the monitor and ripped the cord, and he got a hand on me. I went the only direction that was open, back into my own place and out the bedroom window, the same window that had been sitting on his little screen the whole time. I opened my forearm on the frame going through. I ran 2 blocks up to a gas station, the one with the huckleberry taffy by the register, bleeding through my sleeve, and I called it in from the counter. The proof was never going to be a piece of paper. The proof was my own bedroom, live on a screen in a closet, with a chair pulled up to it like a movie. I was out of that apartment inside a week, left furniture behind, didn't care. You do not sleep again in a room after you have watched it live on somebody else's monitor. And here's where I always land, the thing that flipped everything I thought I understood about the whole setup. I spent months believing my cameras were protecting me. They were not. All they ever did was mark down, for him, the exact hours I was sure nobody was looking. So he'd know when it was safe to go sit in that closet and watch the one room I had never bothered to point a camera at, my own.